Good evening and welcome to another live edition of the Magpie Circle. Well, the last 24 hours have certainly been a little bit on the interesting side, haven't we? Joining me tonight, Mark Stallard and Chloe Page. Welcome to you both. You both, I think probably endured is probably the right adjective to use. You endured 90 minutes plus stoppages at Edgeley Park last night, or whatever it's called. We'll be getting your thoughts and views very shortly, but a very warm welcome to you both.
Hi, Paul. You're right. Hi, Stal.
Hi, Chloe. You're right.
Yeah, so we'll be getting on to Stockport, but clearly a lot has happened today. I wasn't able to get to Stockport, first one I've missed for about 3 months, but I've been doing a bit of homework, bit of research ahead of tonight's show. Harry Arter joins us on loan from Nottingham Forest, cost £5 million not that long ago. Not had the best of times at Forest, but one of his former managers, among others, Scott Parker, had some very positive things to say about Notts. And Harry is keen to get playing football again, which fair play at 32. There aren't too many necessarily seasoned Premier League Championship performers who at 32 will be coming into the National League at the business end of the season. Fair play to him. He joins us. And we can also delve into what did and didn't happen between Notts County and the National League when the club sought 2 postponements before the Stockport game. It came out earlier today that Notts had sought to postpone Stockport and also the trip to Dagenham on the grounds of illness and injury sweeping through the camp. Illness that has affected large numbers of the backroom staff, general staff at Meadow Lane. It's fair to say they did a swept through the club. However, both of those applications were turned down by the National League, turned down on the basis Notts would be able to field 10 outfield players and a goalkeeper. Some of the rules have changed from the original COVID protocols. That is why the game took place. That is why Ian was clearly very upset after the game. However, Notts will not be seeking, as I understand it, to bring back either Tyrese Palmer or Lewis Knight as it stands. They are, however, looking to bring at least one more player into the club, potentially on loan, to strengthen playing resources. We'll delve into that a bit more as we move on. Okay, I'll tell you what, let's start off with Chloe. Chloe, give me fan reaction, fan thoughts. You were in the away end last night. What was your take on those 90 minutes?
Very frustrated and disappointed, but I must say that was before there was any knowledge of what had actually happened. So I think every fan went into that game. We knew we had injuries and a couple of players had been ill for a couple of weeks now, but we had no idea the extreme of it. So I think reaction straight after the game was very different to when we actually had a knowledge about kind of the extent of what had happened throughout the squad. It is a really difficult one because they can't really come out and say this before the game. I don't think they really have a place to. But if we had the prior knowledge of kind of the reason behind how we played and the squad that was playing and the reason people weren't coming off the bench, etc., then I think you would have had a different reaction from the fans at the end of the game. It's a difficult one to take, and you've got to respect all the players, especially the ill ones, for coming out and playing. I agree in Ian's interview. We talk about we haven't asked for anything. All of our games that have been postponed have not been through us, and that Ian has tried to play and the players have tried to play every game possible. And I don't know whether it's COVID or even if it's just an illness. It doesn't really matter what the illness is at all. Due to player welfare, in my opinion, the game shouldn't be going ahead. And we've asked that. I don't know, obviously, how prior to the game that we put this request in, whether it was too late, but then hearing in that Dagenham also got a request in and it was immediately denied, puts into question a lot, because I completely agree again with Ian that a few months ago, and there's absolutely no way in hell that game would have gone ahead. Do I think that we'd have got anything from the game anyway? Probably a pessimistic view, but maybe not. But that's not to say that with a fully fit side that we wouldn't have given it more of a game. But difficult. I think the overall kind of now message is disappointment from both, not just the performance, but the way everything's kind of been handled by the league.
Okay, National League can always be easy whipping boys, Stel. So we now know, we didn't before the game, that Notts had requested a postponement. It was turned down. Notts put a team out. Clearly, Ian was very unhappy after the game. You watched it. How much of a difference do you think it made to the end result? The poor preparation that Notts had, players playing when ordinarily they would not have been expected to.
We'll never know how much difference it made, but I mean, you asked Chloe what was the fan reaction. Obviously, disappointment at that. I would say that the difference it made was almost palpable. You could almost tell if you didn't know. And Chloe's saying there that the fans didn't know anything about the illness and injuries, or well, the illness mainly that's sweeping through the changing rooms. But from watching the game, you might have had a good guess that they just don't look right here. This is not the Notts that we've watched, play really well and play pretty averagely throughout the season. Last night was for me, and again, it might be because it's in your head, because I knew the issues. I knew sort of, we'd spoken with the club beforehand. We knew what was happening. So it maybe then puts it in your head that you're looking out for it more. But it just was a really poor and affected performance last night. They looked lacking in energy and it was lethargic is the way I just kept sort of describing it on the radio. And that's how you feel when you're ill, isn't it? If you're badly ill now, how much it made any difference, take nothing away. Stockport are a fantastic team at this moment in time, absolutely on a run to dream of. They are as close to unstoppable at this moment as you are going to get in football. They're on a crest of a wave, full of confidence, got good players all over the pitch. Managers come in, changed everything there, changed everything, turned things round in the way that he has. And, you can't see them being stopped. So how much different? We could have gone there with a full team and a full squad and still got beat. So you will never know. But there is that, and we did know, we sort of knew before the game, there is that frustration again. And my target again, like it has been for a couple of seasons, is the National League. The setup of the National League, and not just because it's not just because, we've not asked them for anything else prior to this, but because nobody ever seems to know what the rulings are. Nothing is communicated in any sort of way. And it might not be the regulations, it might be the PR and the messaging that is around the National League. But it is so, like I say, tin pot is always the word that gets used, isn't it? Social media. But it just seems like they never do themselves any favours with what the rules are, what the rules aren't. And they can turn down a request for Saturday's game to be called off because Notts have got theoretically 12 players available. But what happens between, after the game last night, you get a couple more come down with it, whatever this illness is, going round, you quite easily pick it up. So if 2 or 3 more go down with it, they've already said Saturday's game's going ahead. Could they then turn around on Wednesday, Thursday, be another application, and they go, well, this time, it can go ahead. Yeah, sorry, it will be stopped. It's like I said, they're never covering themselves in any glory for me. But in terms of the game, Stockport by far the better team, absolutely by far. And if Notts had been fully fit, who knows? It might not have made a great deal of difference anyway. But knowing what was going wrong, it was a massively affected performance.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of difficult to go into too much detail about what the illness is, though clearly lots of people are going to speculate. Notts are one of the clubs that do lots of tests for lots of illnesses a lot of the time, which a lot of clubs don't. So I think there is a view among the club that Notts are kind of being penalised two or threefold in how the league is interpreting their protocols and the suspensions. However, and I guess this is kind of the other side of the debate that's going on at the moment, Stell, is that Stockport clearly are the form team. Notts really, Boreham Wood are slipping back at the minute, and Bromley. Notts overall, I think you talk a lot about 10-game segments, don't you, in a season? You'll know this stat better than me because I know you're very diligent on these ahead of the show and ahead of Radio Nottingham. It's 12 points from the last 10 games, isn't it, for Notts now?
Yeah, I think so. That's right, yeah.
Now, how, from your perspective, acceptable, unacceptable is that when we are now starting to gear up for the real business end of the season?
Well, it's nowhere near good enough. Is the top and bottom of it. You know, if that's what you want to use as any sort of marker, 10 games, it's nowhere near good enough. 1.2 points per game gets you middle of the table, if that. So nowhere near good enough. The form is, you know, take last night out of it, you know, because of the illness and because it was so obviously, you know, they weren't right. I will give them a free hit for last night because that is, they're human, they're ill, that, you know, that happens. But you can't get away from the fact that the form has not been good enough over recent weeks, you know, and they've not picked up the points that are required. So there is an improvement needed, a massive improvement in terms of picking up points. I don't really, between now and the end of the season, I don't really care about performances. We love the way we play, and when it all comes together, of course, that's great. But it's about picking up the points to get us as high up the table as possible and get us as high in them playoff places as we possibly can. So if we have 12 dull games between now and the end of the season, as long as we pick up a decent share of that 36 points that's available, then we're not going to ask too many questions about it.
Chloe, what's gone wrong in these 10 games? I mean, you look at the number of goals that we are conceding, have conceded. I think I mentioned in last week's show, after away fans, I think, are a very accurate barometer. They clearly go to home games. They travel away. They tend to be a little bit more measured. Yeah, tend to take an overall umbrella picture. What's the view of the average Notts fan right now?
I think it's just frustrating that it tends to be that no matter I think we've got a problem both ends of the pitch. Let's start there. You look at games like Halifax and how we've come away from that a draw. I'll never know. And we've had a few of them. But at the minute, no matter which defence you play, I think we must have played almost every combination now, and nobody can keep a clean sheet, no matter which mix of players you want to play. None of them are keeping clean sheets. I don't know whether it's down to personal error as such. There's not one person that I'd blame, to be honest. I don't know whether it's a formation thing, because we've tried different formations. For me, it's difficult because the first half of the season, one of the things that I really liked about Birchnell was his game management. I think you saw at the start of the season, if something wasn't working during a game, that was quickly changed. Whether we might have had more option back there to change it. I know recently that I think substitutions are massive in a game, because 45 minutes, you can change your game. You can change your game in 10. You've always got a chance in the game to do something else, try something else, and it changes the game. But maybe we've had recently some like-for-like subs that actually have kind of been forced upon us. So Eli Sam had to go off a couple of times, injured. So we're then bringing the same player on in Cairo Mitchell. Whereas at the time, you don't really know that as a fan, especially if it's like a niggly injury that they've picked up. You have no idea sometimes, and it's quite frustrating when you're kind of seeing this like-for-like sub, same formation. I can't put it down to injuries because you can't blame everything on injuries. But again, we're having a problem taking our chances at the minute, and we are creating, which is a positive sign. But you can look back on every game. You're never going to score all of your chances. But last night, even with the circumstances, we could have been 2-0 up. Did we deserve to be 2-0 up? No, but it doesn't matter. At this point in the season, like Stal says, we could have 10% possession in every game and we win, and I really don't care at this point in the season. I wouldn't want to see that all season long, don't get me wrong, but right now, you see the teams that are in the playoffs, they have such good game management, and even if they're not playing well, they're getting the points over the line, scoring last-minute goals, scoring scrappy goals. We just can't seem to do that, and I don't know what it is, but the goals are going in one end and not in the other, which you're going to lose more than you're going to win. You're going to lose more than you draw. And this point in the season, something does need to change. We'll see how Harry Arter does coming in. I don't know whether he'll start because obviously in his interview he's kind of on about match fitness a little bit. But again, it's something different. And hopefully another lone player, see if it can change. It's just a difficult one. I can't pinpoint what it is, but there's been a lot of games recently where we may have played the better football, had the better chances, but we've come out with it again disappointed, not picking up the points that we should do. So from now to the end of the season, you've just got to focus on getting that game over the line. And it now has to be 3 points rather than a draw. Whereas if we'd have turned some of them draws into wins, some of them losses into draws, then we might be in a different situation than we are now. But all we've got to do is take the games that we've got coming up. We've got a couple of tough games coming up in like the near future. But then after that, there shouldn't be any excuse, but we'll see what happens.
Okay, let's dive into some comments from our flock. Lee Brearley. Hi all, shame on Tuesday. I have said it for a while, we concede too many and too easily. Great signing with Arter. Maybe we could have done with him a while back, but playoffs it is with his help. Steph Milek says, straight to the point. Lots and lots of talk on Tuesday night on social media regarding IB needs to go. These so-called fans need to get real. Some even unhappy at Arter signing. Idiots. Inspector 71, evening Paul. Looking forward to a tasty show. Be interested to see what impact Harry has. Gary Smithhurst is a little unimpressed. Smacks of a vanity signing to me to try and appease a fan base who are becoming disillusioned with likelihood of missing out on the playoff stroke promotion. It's not even a position we particularly need. AD Clark, good evening. Looking forward to some lively debate. Dana Huskisson, I'd like to wish the lads well and hope that they get well soon. Chris Gosling, last night was tough, but in some respects, the game is now gone. Let's get on with it. Chris Gosling then adds, I'd take another vanity signing. Plenty of banter between Chris and Gary, who normally take slightly opposing viewpoints. I think it's fair to say. What else have we got? Inspector 71. We need to be positive, but 3 wins in 13 does not lie. And unless we find an upturn and quickly, the playoffs will be a pipe dream. Okay, we'll come on to some more in a moment. Stel, okay, so we're outside the playoffs. Clearly, Dagenham has a bit of extra spice because they would go above us and knock us down a place on Saturday. How real do you think it is that Notts could miss out on a place on the playoffs, which certainly Christmas time, whatever, I think would have been largely unthinkable?
Yeah, they could, because they're not in there at the minute. So they could. For what I don't expect them to miss out on the playoffs. I've said that all season, and even despite the downturn in results in recent weeks, I still expect them to make the playoffs. But the downturn in results have made it far more feasible that, yeah, it isn't beyond the realms of possibility now that they miss the playoffs. Whereas as you say, Christmas time, turn of the year, you just couldn't see that happening. So, but that part of that comes down to the fact of not being in great form at this moment, and also we're getting closer to the sharp end when it matters. The only time the league matters is when everyone's played the 44 games. So, this is getting nitty-gritty time now. So they've got to pick up, absolutely no two ways about it. But you look at the fixtures that they've got, and what you don't look at is that other teams have got to play each other. There'll be other teams dropping points, other teams picking up points. But, there's a long way to go still. And with 12 games, more than a quarter of the season to go, and we've seen if you divide the season up into quarters, Notts form goes up and down and all over the place in them sections. So there's still time for it to change. The biggest worry for me is in the short term is from Tuesday night to Saturday, how many of these lads who are ill and suffering, how many are going to be better for Saturday? And then conversely, how many are going to get even better than for Tuesday, Boreham Wood at home? You've got two massive games. Every game's a massive game, really, between now and the end of the season. But two immediate, short-term, massive games. How big of a pool is he going to have to pick from? And I think that's part of the reason why, whether people see it as a what was the signing for Ariata? What was it called? To the
vanity
whatever. What?
Someone said it was a vanity signing on there.
Vanity signing. Whether you see it as a vanity signing or a great signing, we need bodies that are actually fit in the building. And I mean fit as in healthy, not necessarily fit as in match fit. So we need people who can play and give an account to themselves, because I think he's gone out and done that on the back of how things have looked over the last, 24, 36 hours, whereby they tried their best to put a team out, and you never know when people are ill. You never know how they're going to react. Is the adrenaline going to take them through it? You just do not know. It didn't. It fell way short. So he's obviously thinking, well, we need to go and get bodies in who can at least get through a game and put up. And the reason I think as well that they obviously wouldn't make too much noise about it prior to the game is you don't want to tell your opponents that you're suffering before a game, particularly not a Stockport like that. So I think there's a little bit of urgency in the signings, whether there's another signing that they're looking at, a loan signing. And obviously, there's this stage of the season, how many people are available? So it's just a case of getting bodies in the building. I think Ariata, with his experience, even if he isn't match fit, can come in and do a job, certainly.
With what you've just said in mind, and being part of the Strikers Union, Stal, would you not be a little surprised that Notts wouldn't be bringing back Lewis Knight? He scored a couple for Bradford Park Avenue, and although he's not played at this level, he is a contracted player with us. Tyrese Palmer.
Again, depends on whether it's from what I hear, it's more the defence and the midfield lads who are suffering.
Yes, exactly.
So, you could bring them back. Then are you going to play Lewis Knight as a defender? Tyrese Palmer as a young lad, you can't really stick him in a position he doesn't know. I think that the first option was obviously to go with players that you knew and just hope that the effects of the illness or whatever they're suffering from, they could get through. Now, obviously after the event, we're a little bit wiser, and maybe he would have done something different. But, with a crystal ball, we all make the right decision. So it doesn't surprise me massively going on what I've heard in terms of who's suffering the most.
Chloe, Ariata, how big a statement of intent? How much does that appease the average Notts fan at the moment? This is a guy that cost Forest £5 million. He's operated over 100 appearances in the Premier League. He brings perhaps slightly different midfield attributes than we currently have. And also, there's a little bit more maturity. He's 32, to work alongside some of our younger players.
Yeah, it's definitely a statement. And I think you can see that with the reaction that it's had from Twitter. It kind of came out of nowhere a little bit. I think people probably expected us to bring a couple in, obviously just with kind of what's happened at the minute. But it's a statement. Like you say, if you'd have said at Christmas, by March, we're going to have a £5 million player in the squad, everyone kind of look at you a little bit funny, I think. We'll see. It's always difficult to kind of assume what's going to happen. We all kind of have expectations from loanees, and then it either goes one way or it goes the other. I'm sure we've had many disappointing loanee signings or actual signings that we thought maybe would have been better, but quite a lot go the other way and they're better than what you expected. So I think even if not ability, just experience, like Stel was saying, is going to be incredible. And just somebody that, like you say, is physically fit and healthy to just see us through the next couple of games is ideal, kind of no matter who it is. But yeah, the maturity that he brings, the amount of games that he's played, game management, obviously he's dropping down a few levels as such. But I think he understands that that it's not a pushover league, and it's going to be competitive. But just to have someone that knows game management inside and out and can just sit and help everybody else out and have a great game knowledge. Whether he comes off the bench or whether he starts, it's a different story. I think it really depends who has come through the other side by Saturday. But yeah, it's definitely a positive signing, and we will see who else we're bringing as well.
Lots of comments. Gary Wardle, we need fantastic athletes. If they could bomb forward, then be back in place instantly to stop goals in our net. Chris Gosling, we need players who make things happen in the opponent's box rather than ones who need it on a plate. Steve Silver, we'd be winning more games with Patterson still in goal, I believe. Not sure we'd have done too much by all accounts last night. Gary Wardle, to play the IB style, we need the fittest, strongest, tough tackling wing backs in the league, no question. AD Clark, massive game against Dagenham for the team mentally. Daggers go above us if they win. Martin Hearson says, we're in a tough patch right now. Performances have mostly been good enough, but results definitely not. Too many missed chances have cost us. Hopefully Harry Arter comes in, gives us a bit of grit and digs in. Duncan Comrie, we have no divine right to promotion. It's a tough league, probably the toughest. A playoff place is not beyond us. Gordon Grant, Martin Allen called it on a previous show. Too many goals conceded, not enough goals scored. Chris Gosling, Saturday is massive given Dagenham chasing us. We need to set our sights on the team immediately above us and just try and pick them off one by one. Martin Hearson, still no doubt will make the playoffs, though. Is it going to be easy? No, but we need to stick together and get some confidence back in the team. The lads need our full support. Stel, when Ian came in last season, I think it's fair to say he had a pretty torrid start. And ironically, coincidentally or not, I suspect it wasn't coincidence. The turnaround came when Ian's assistant Maurice Ross made some racist comments about his own player, one of our own players. A delegation of players went in to see the club. Maurice Ross was sacked. The club then completely turned around their results. Now, it's not as polarized as that. Okay, 12 points from 10 is not great. I was listening to your commentary last night, and you made points about stopping crosses coming in. You spoke, I can only speak from what I've heard from him, because I didn't see the game. You spoke about Madden, it being in between the two centre halves for the header. These, even allowing for fitness challenges, I know particularly Connell and Alex Lacey have been struggling with this illness. Are you confident that things are going to change sufficiently? Because the number of goals conceded against our promotion rivals, it's 3 straight games in which we've conceded 3 goals. So Chesterfield lost 3-1, Solihull 3-3, Stockport 3-0. Doesn't suggest we're getting any better at the back. What needs to change? Because clearly you're not going to win many away games when you concede 3 goals.
No, I mean, you're absolutely right. It doesn't take any sort of intelligence to to suggest if we concede 3 each game, we are going to not get the playoffs. I think are we safe from relegation? I think we are, yeah. But what's got and this is the problem, and Chloe mentioned it. It's hard to put your finger on one single thing, and that's because there isn't one single thing that is the problem in a football match. You know, any football team when there's an issue, you can't solve it with one thing. It's a number of things. So, for instance, I mean, don't want to use last night particularly because of Notts, but just from a Stockport perspective, they pressed high because they're confident, because they can do that, because they're not too fearful. Do you know what? If somebody turns around and Jaden Richardson scores them 2 chances, they're left with a bit of egg on their face. But do you know what? They've won 16 out of 20, so they play with that confidence. They can do that. When you're not in that sort of run of form, then all of a sudden people just start being a little bit more hesitant, and things aren't quite as fluid. It can start off with, is your striker holding the ball up enough to give you a platform to play? And conversely, is the service into the striker good enough? Is it giving him a chance, or is it giving the defenders a chance to just come and gobble it up and take the ball back, and then they're on at the defence? Stopping crosses is a massive one for Notts. You know, can we stop more crosses than we allow into the penalty area? Because that seems to be the source of problems for us all season. So we have got to make a concerted effort to try and stop them crosses at source. Does that mean then you have to start playing whoever plays in them sort of advanced wide positions, whether it's Cal, Eli, Ruben, whoever's playing them? Do they have to play a little bit deeper? And that takes a little bit away from going forward. It's a very, very fine line in terms of there's not one answer. You know, you could, and I'm sure everybody's got their own opinion, and mine isn't necessarily right. Of course it isn't. But there's a lot. It's not just a case of people might go, well, get Alex Lacey out of the team, get Conor Rawlinson out of the team. If Mark Ellis had been in, or if Carl Cameron had been in, or whoever had been in, this wouldn't have been happening. But Chloe's dead right. This has been happening on and off all season, no matter who's played there. So, yes, of course, better individual defenders would help, but you still want for the team, you still want them defenders to be able to play on the ball. They've still got to be decent. I look at Ash Palmer and Ryan Johnson for Stockport last night, 2 built like centre-halves who will go and have a battle with you. Early on, Kyle Wootton's battling with them and holding the ball up quite well. But they can also play as well. So there are players about, but Notts didn't ask them anything like the questions that Stockport asked us. And if you allow balls into your box, you're going to concede. It's the nature of the beast. So then you've got to do more to stop it. Then do you go a little bit more compact, a little bit more defensive or defensive minded? Well, Neil Ardley got pillarised for that, didn't he? For being a little bit more defensive minded. So it's a very difficult balancing act. And it is all rosy when the players are playing well and we're taking our chances and we're putting teams. And if we're winning 3-2, nobody's really complaining about the 2 because we've got all 3 points. But if we're conceding as we are, and rightly so, we're looking at it defensively and going, we're not solid enough. We're too easy. The term I use, and I've used it also, I hate it, but we are still a bit nice. We are still a bit nice. Out of possession of the ball, particularly. You know, I think we can be more ruthless with the ball. Certainly, we're very good on the eye with the ball, and we play well. I mean, Solihull game, you know, was just 2 teams just tearing each other to shreds basically every time they had the ball. But is that enough? You've got to then do the bit out of possession, and that's what I thought Stockport looked so good at last night. When they were out of possession, they were pressing. They weren't giving Notts any time on the ball. Again, caveats for Notts performances, but they just had that hunger all over the pitch to go and get the ball back. The very best teams at football, you see it all over. They're great and they've got all the best players, of course they have, but they're so hungry to get the ball back. It's incredible, and they work hard. So the best teams work the hardest out of possession. I just wonder at times, do we do enough out of possession of the ball? You know, but that isn't just it's not just one problem, one possible thing. Because again, I would still go back to we can be more ruthless in front of goal with the chances we create and the ball that we have in and around the opponent's penalty area.
Chloe, you were at Solihull. You were there Friday night, Wrexham. You were obviously there at Stockport last night. How far do you think we're off it in terms of the standard that is required to either at least be shoo-ins for playoffs, i.e. go in for that kind of third, fourth spot? And I guess an insight from Stockport's perspective, what it takes to be National League winners. How far away do you think we are? Because this I think is a big debating point among our fan base. Some will say we're miles off it. Others will say we're pretty close. Some will say, oh, well, we're doing absolutely as well as we can because Stockport, Wrexham, Chesterfield have got pots of money.
I think there's, at this present time, a big difference between us and Stockport. But I also think that a few little tweaks, obviously, I don't know what these tweaks are, but it's easy to say. You put a couple of them chances away, and I'm not talking about half chances. I'm talking about one-on-ones missed at Solihull with Zach Brunt. I'm talking about Jaden Richardson missing an open net last night. These kind of stonewall chances you can't be missing if you want to be champions of the National League, and you can't afford to concede the silly goals that we're conceding. I'll hold my hands up if it's a wonder goal. There's nothing anybody can do about it, fair play. But some of the goals, even last night, obviously, we don't really want to use last night with obviously everything that's happened. But as good as Stockport were, and I'm not taking anything away from them, they're the best team we've played this season. Granted, when we played them at home, we look like world beaters, really. But the run that they've gone on at the minute and last night's performance, it was incredible. It was so different, kind of how far off the mark we were last night for very different reasons. But again, we were conceding goals that they were easy goals, simple football for Stockport, and we can't seem to do that back. We should be conceding less of these simple goals and scoring more of them. I'm not asking them to go and kind of score 3 goals every game or score wonder goals in the halfway line or anything ridiculous. It's these small little tweaks are the difference between where we are now and the top of the league. And it's going on a run, not just of 3 or 4 games, it's 10, 15 games that drag you from where Stockport were for a lot of the season, actually, especially up until Christmas, have dragged them straight to the top. And like I said, they look unbeatable no matter who they play, home and away, that they're going and getting the points, whether they've played well or not. And we're just not even close to that right now, I don't think. But again, just these little tweaks, these scoring, these certain chances that you shouldn't be missing them, because we get ourselves into such good positions by doing so. I mean, you take it at Solihull, we've just gone and scored. Literally from kickoff, we should have had another. That then takes you the momentum on. And I don't doubt that we would have gone and won the game. But then we kind of miss a big chance again, like we're talking the trophy. Don't get me wrong, it was a great strike from Francis to hit the bar. And it's probably unfair to say that he should have scored it because he's quite far out and it's not a simple tap in. But you miss a chance like that and they go up the other end and score. And there's not many occasions where we go kind of a 2-goal deficit in the lead. It's not a case of we're them conceding 2. We kind of score 1 and then concede 1 all the way around. We concede 1, then we score 1. We don't seem to kind of then write the game off once we've got some momentum going, which I think is a little bit of the issue. I think, again, we talk about the trophy game, the Wrexham game. We had, again, so many chances. That game could have been written off. You talk about the Grimsby game, they should have been written off at half-time. And it's just these little things that I could name 3 or 4 games where there's no way we shouldn't have won them. Like, no way, like the Halifax game, and there's a couple of others in there as well that we shouldn't. Again, Solihull, there's no way you should be going away from home and scoring 3 and not winning. It's incredible, but these small little 3 points here, 3 points there, and then we're right in the mix. There's been so many opportunities this season, or even in the last 10 games, where I think the results have really gone our way and we haven't capitalised on that. I know you can only concentrate on yourselves, but there's been so many occasions where we could have gone up to third, we could have gone up to fourth, yet we stayed in seventh for quite a few games where we had such a good opportunity to be right back in the mix. And it's these couple of games where you add 3 more points and it sends you flying. So I don't think we're miles off it. It's just a case that we're not doing it consistently, I think. But again, the point is, the people that have spent the most money, the league doesn't really lie, does it? They've not been great all season, and they've been slated, especially first half of the season when they weren't really in the playoffs, especially Wrexham were dropping, and then Stockport as well, and they were being questioned. Well, I dread to think about their wage bill, how much they've spent, the managers that they brought in, and they weren't doing it. But these players have then managed to turn it on when it's mattered, and it's dragged them straight to the top. It's always great if you have a squad, have the budget for a very good squad. But also I've seen teams get out of this league with not really a big budget. So it just shows that it can be done, but it's difficult to compete against. I think this is the first season where we've really had to compete against budgets. And it's proved difficult, but this squad, like we've said so many times, I've seen them do it. It's just getting back to that for the last 12 games. Let's find that from within us and go on a run, because we're getting a little bit desperate for that run to come now.
Neil Widdowson says, I don't think we're that far off, Gary Wardle. We're not too far off ability-wise, but miles away character-wise. Chris Gosling says, big moments in big games. We have missed too many to count. Gary Smither says, not enough leaders in this team. Martin Hearson says, frustrating watching how well we can play. No doubt we've got the quality. As some performances have been unbelievable, but missed chances have killed us, and no doubt that's given opponents the boost. Still, with what we've got, with what we've spent, how close should we, do you think, be to top spot?
Closer than we are.
Yeah,
I think we should be right.
How much closer?
Well, I think we should be right in the coattails and right up there in the fight. Money isn't everything. You know, it doesn't guarantee your success, but it does help. Let's make no bones, because if money didn't guarantee your success, we'd all be going on at the Reach Brothers to go, don't spend that money on them players. Get cheaper players in. You know, nobody's wanting cheaper players on less money. We want better players on more money, because you get a better chance with more money, or with better players, supposedly. And as Chloe's dead right, the league is telling the story that the clubs with the money have bought, it seems, decent players, and they've got results out of it over the 3 quarters of the season virtually that we've had so far. Still a quarter of the season to be played for. So not for me. I agree totally with the guy. It's when you watch them this season and you listen to comments of opposing managers before and after the game, a number of them, more earlier on in the season, first half of the season, have said how good Notts are. They know what a threat Notts are. They're one of the best teams in the division, and that's where they should be. So 8th in the table isn't good enough. They should be right up there, challenging with your Stockports, your Chesterfield, Wrexhams, Boreham Woods, who are having a great season. They should be right up there with the ability that we've got. But because that ability hasn't been quite consistent enough, the defensive side of the team, and I'm not just talking the defender, the defensive side of the team hasn't been consistently good enough. We are where we are, and we need to improve. But we have got the ability that we can improve, and I expect us to. Yeah,
a lot of observations coming in. Jurgen Halligan, and Jurgen would be, one of the most diehard Notts fans, and whose opinion I think would be pretty accurate. Said, worst game at Stockport I've seen in a while, left when the 3rd goal went in. I've never seen Notts fans so quiet. I worry now we'll even make the playoffs. So Jurgen's a bit down at the moment. We struggle away from too many points dropped. Teams are sussing us out. Chris Gosling, we've not been hard done by this season, so the table isn't lying. We are where we deserve to be, and it's way off anyone's levels of expectation. Clearly, there has to be a sea change in results. And I guess some fans, Chloe, are going to just point to, oh, well, we've got an easy run in. But when I had my rant last week, I just don't think you can kind of like write off 3 or 4 games. Well, that's hard. But the last 7 will win all of them because, I'll have a telling with anyone now. I'm not so sure we will win all the last 7 or 8 games. Talk about putting yourself under pressure to make the playoffs. To have to rattle off the last 7 or 8, and we're basing that on them being not as good opposition. I do think we need to turn things around relatively quickly. I think fans are getting a little disenchanted, and as Graham Taylor often would say to me, the former England manager, Graham would say one of the tricks of management is to get the level of results that your fans expect you to get within reason. Try and match the expectations. If you can surpass them, that's brilliant. But I think there's a level of expectation among our fan base, irrespective of the challenges we're having with illness, applications to the National League, and kind of feels the National League have got it in for me. They've all got it in for me, says Kenneth Williams, in the great Carry On film. Somehow we've got to channel that. And get a few results and be nasty, get a clean sheet, in the grand scheme of things, a 0-0 draw at Wealdstone wasn't the worst result. Didn't play particularly or didn't lose, for a clean sheet right now. What wouldn't we all give for a clean sheet at Dagenham on Saturday? I bet every single one of us would take a 0-0 now.
A clean sheet gives you a chance to go and win it. That's the way I see it. And that's what we're so desperate. If you don't concede, you're giving yourself the best chance possible. And that is our problem at the minute. Conceding. And I, like Stal said earlier, I think we've got a problem with crosses coming into the box. I also think the other way, we've got a problem with we don't put balls into the box often enough for people to get the end of it. But like you say, we've all got our different opinions of what we should and shouldn't be doing. But I'd snap your hand off for a clean sheet at the minute, to kind of reevaluate, get ourselves back together, a little bit of confidence in that defence. Like I say, it's not always the defence's fault. We lose it in midfield a lot, and it kind of can even start from up front. It's a whole team problem, the defensive side of it. It's not going to be easy, and none of them are going to be easy. But I remember having this conversation before this difficult run-in of games, before the Grimsby, before Chesterfield, before Stockport, etc., talking about our last 8 games. And I think that I said that coming into this really difficult run now, if you come out of it still in the playoffs, you're giving yourself a good chance with a good momentum to take that into the last 8 games. If we come out of these last few games, and I'm probably talking up to Torquay away, if we come out of the playoffs, you're not giving yourselves much momentum. That doesn't mean that we can't then go on a run after that, but you're just kind of clutching at straws a little bit more. The pressure's piling on by that point. No game's easy, but if you look at kind of blocks of 10 games, the last 10 games should be on paper a lot easier than the 10 games that we've just gone through. But it's not as easy as just saying that. I think it's really difficult that you need some momentum coming into these last few games. And it could be a blessing in disguise that if we do go on this run, take that into the playoffs. We could be the most informed team come the playoffs, and we need to be to make it at the minute. And we need to be, if we're going to play 2 away games in the playoffs, we need to be on top form, because that's what I'm kind of nervous about obviously getting into playoffs to start with. But if we're going to play them away games, something needs to change between now and then in terms of away games specifically. Home games, we've done all right in recently. Obviously, our home form was incredible until the last few weeks where we've been dropping points where we probably shouldn't have. But I think that we can pick up at home. That's kind of our stomping ground. And I have a little bit less pressure at home. I feel more comfortable going to a game at Meadow Lane than I do travelling around the country. Bit more positive going to a home game. If we can pick that away form up and keep the home form up there, it's gonna be an exciting run into the playoffs for a neutral in the National League. I think it'll be a great playoffs to watch. It should be going to be the best teams in the league fighting it off in one leg games, which is important as well. You've got to play well against the side over one leg. But yeah, away games are never easy. Playoffs aren't easy, but let's just get in them first.
Okay, Chloe, good points. Lots coming in. Max Seth, have not become too statistic-based. It's okay as having the most possession in the league or the second highest XG factor. But do we need to be more football-based? That's an interesting point. It's not me under an alias, by the way. I don't want to particularly go down that one too much tonight because we have done it a few times. And I'm sure most people are bored by my opinions on that now. One thing I want to kind of like delve into, Stel. Last season, there was almost like a complete reticence to embrace that we were involved in a promotion race when Ian came, and I was banging on about it, and then the club kind of did a bit of a sea change. The first point is that the best chance, we might as well just head this debate off now. The best chance Notts have got of getting promoted this season is with Ian Burchinall as head coach. As far as I'm concerned, it's a no-brainer. I'll gladly canvass your two views as well, because he's worked with these players. He knows these players better than anyone else. And so clearly on social media, you get knee-jerk reactions. So let's just clearly state this. Ian Burchinall is the best person to get this club promoted. I do think, depending where we end up, there needs to be a bit of an inquest as to then how you move the club forward. Because if he gets us up, I'm sure he can sign another extension to his very long contract already. If we go out gallantly in the playoffs, I think there's a discussion to be had. I think if you miss out on the playoffs, I think you have to say it's a complete and utter failure. And then I think you have the discussions. Somehow or other, Stel, for me, there needs to be some form of galvanizing moment. You know what I mean? I don't know what it is. For me, this is only a personal view. You know, when I hear Ian, was it 10 days ago, talking about, I don't look at the league table too much. I look at average points per game. That was actually a quote from Ian. Now, me as a fan, I kind of wince at that, you know, because, you know, I come from an old school approach of a Neil Warnock or a Sam Allardyce or those kind of people where they live and die by results. And I am sure, of course, Ian knows we live and die by results. We do hear an awful lot about performance levels, individual standards. We do hear, to Max Seth's point, about statistical based approach. We know that in the background, Notts have got Richard Montague leading a team of video analysts. You know, we're fortunate enough to have in Alex Canham a specialist first team coach with responsibility for set pieces, all of these sorts of things. But one of the observations that does keep coming back is we have a bit of a soft underbelly. Yeah. I mean, is that just me as an individual? Is there anything in that from your perspective? Does that kind of give the players a little bit of an out now and again, if you know what I mean?
Well, what you mean, everything that's around it, you think things are a bit maybe too cushy, a little bit too
Not so
easy for the
much
play.
pushy. When we talk about levels of performance, I'm not going to criticise the players for the level of performance today, but you don't win. You know, I'm talking about. Let's be right. Of the last 12 games, what have we got to win, Stowe? 8 to make the playoffs? 7?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, I would think 7 or 8. Yeah.
You know, so for me, nothing else matters other than results. I mean, they never don't, but you know, everything's on the line here, isn't it? For a lot of people, there's careers at stake. Yeah,
Of course, yeah, of course. You know, you're always playing for your career. That's the thing about football. No matter what, really, your contract says and how long it is, you're always playing for your career because you don't play well, you suddenly find you're not in the starting lineup, and it doesn't matter what your contract says. If you're out of mind, out of sight, you're out of mind. Soft underbelly. I think we are a little bit nice. If you want to put that, I would go. Yeah, I think there are times when we are too nice, and I think sometimes that is when you're a footballing team, a real, almost total footballing team, as Notts try to be, then it's very difficult for that transition from in possession to out of possession to then suddenly to be lovely, nice, silky touches, running off the ball, lovely movements, all that sort of stuff, to then turn into animals that want to caged animals that want to get the ball back, snapping at the opposition's heels like that when you've conceded possession. So I would agree. Yeah, I think we have got a bit of a soft underbelly. We have shown that we have got a bit of a soft underbelly in the goals we concede. And the results that we haven't got when we've not really. I can only think of Barnet twice that we've ever put teams to the sword this season. Outside of them 2 games, I think we've won plenty of games, of course, but I don't think we've really shown the dominance that we've had in terms of play. And that can be, again, soft underbelly can mean a lot of different things. This being nice can mean a lot of different things. To me, I was talking from a striker's perspective about ruthlessness. And 2 examples I've seen noted of it in recent games. At Solihull, that ridiculous game, the Andrew Dallas second goal, the deflected, not the great goal that equalised, the deflected cross that just fell into his path, first touch, finish. And it's in the back of the net before Notts got a chance to get anybody in the way. And Dan Jarvis the other night for Wrexham, I know it was the FA Trophy.
Yeah. I know the one you're going to say.
Dominated. Yeah. We'd absolutely dominated them first half. They come down, they'd had very little play, but they have a ball into the box. Again, a deflection. So no criticism particularly of any defensive work, but it comes to him and first touch, finish. It's in the back of the net before you know it. And Chloe's alluded to it. We've all alluded to it. We've all seen it in games. Do we create 1 chance and it equals 1 goal? I know we're talking about defensive work, but are we ruthless enough? Or are we a little bit nice? We need 3 chances to score 1 goal, and we'll work the ball to the edge of the box, and we'll play so many. We'll look really good, and the stats will tell you we get to the opposition box. But do we have that ruthless finishing streak to go? Doesn't matter if we create 10 chances, we only need 1 to score 1. And the problem comes the other end, having that same ruthlessness to keep the ball out, and that's a different kettle of fish. But I just saw them 2 goals in recent games. Andrew Dallas at Solihull, Dan Jarvis, Wrexham, and you think, that is putting Notts to the sword, because we've been decent in them games, played decent, but we're getting punished. But, punished by ruthless finishing. So we need to be like that against the opposition. And I think throughout the season, although we're 4th highest scorers in the division, for the amount of play, for the amount of attacking play we haven't got that ruthlessness. So you can call that a bit of a soft underbelly, a bit too nice at times, a bit wasteful. However you want to phrase it. Defensively, I don't think there's a question we are too nice. We have got a soft underbelly. Opposition teams aren't made to work hard for the goal or a decent percentage of their goals. Too easy, far too easy. And that comes from being too nice, not being driven, or not having that desire to keep the ball out of the net. It's you could call it a lot of different things, and it can come down to like I say, all the technical aspects of getting out, stopping a cross, sitting your midfield a little bit deep, condensing the space between your defence and the midfield. We could talk about loads of technical aspects of it, But it comes down to, and you can ask all the old school people you want, the Don O'Riordans and people like that, it's about to how much do you want it? How much do you really want to head that ball, to keep that ball out of your goal and put it in at the other end? And like again, we're talking about small margins because we're not far away, but it's just not quite been good enough this season so far.
So all those stats originators out there, Richard Montague at the club, Richard Agando, Notts County Stats, you come up with some stats that measure bodies on the line, last-ditch clearances, and then me and Stella listen a bit more to them. Chloe, we're going to make the playoffs. Come on, let's try and finish on a positive. We're going to make the playoffs, aren't we? We can't not make them.
There needs to be some changes before we do make them. Like Sal says, at this moment in time, we're out of them. If we carry on this current form, it's not going to happen. We can go on a run, but changes need to be made. Players need to be fit, and just like you say, ruthlessness. That's the key. I think both ends of the pitch. Stal summed it up perfectly. I mean, we are creating a lot of chances, but we're not teams come to us, create half chances and score from them. We aren't even scoring from our stone wall chances. And I'm talking one-on-ones with a keeper, open nets. We're not even scoring them. Never mind scoring these half chances that teams are putting us to bed from, which is frustrating. And I've said quite a lot this season that we're trying to score this perfect goal because they want to play a certain way, which is great. And when it comes off, all of them can be goal of the season contenders and goal of the week contenders in the league. Nearly every goal we score should be. And we laughed about it first half of the season because every goal we were scoring was incredible and perfect and whatever else. But like Sal says, balls into the box are massive. You can get a deflection. We don't do it enough. I think the Solihull game sums it up perfectly. Just get the ball into the box. We tap it around the box and then it kind of comes back to the halfway line again. Just stick the ball in the box. Be ruthless. Anything can happen. We did it. One of the goals at Solihull, Chickson sucked the ball in the box, took a deflection, and it was in. We just don't do it enough. If we can convert some of these chances, stonewall chances first, and then create some more half chances, we're well in the money. And like you say, stop conceding these simple goals. And I've got no doubt that we'll get playoffs. It's just that this needs to change very quickly. And I hope that we've got the players to do so. First and foremost, just hope that they're fit and ready for the fight, because it's going to be a real dogfight until the end of the season to get this playoff place.
It's Dagenham Saturday still. Health permitting, I'm hoping you'll be down there and I'll be down there.
So
manager down there, Daryl McMahon. I think he was interviewed for the Notts job once, when Notts were dropping out of the league, and I think, as I understand it, Alan was assessing one or two options. He ended up going to Macclesfield for a bit. I think everybody thought Dagenham wouldn't last the pace, and it appeared that they weren't. But they've kind of had a bit of a renaissance at exactly the wrong time as far as we're concerned. The win at Southend, which is kind of a local derby down there, isn't it? Dagenham Southend. I suspect Southend would have been very unhappy with that result. I mean, would you take a point right now or not at Dagenham, given where Notts are with fitness issues and health issues, just to stop, get a bit of a foothold?
I wouldn't take it now. I wouldn't take a point against anybody. I wouldn't have took a point last night before the game, because, again, the ability that Notts have got, they can go and win any game. And I think a point is the worst result in the world? No, I don't, given the circumstances. But I wouldn't take it before the game, because I think we need to go there and win the game. And just like we'll look on the negative side of, well, if they beat us, they're above us, and it's another team above us. If we beat them, there's good daylight between us and them. Absolutely. So glass half empty, glass half full kind of scenario. I think we go there looking to win the game. There's no reason why not. And we're talking about a team who've had their ups and downs of a roller coaster season. Been hot, been cold, and everywhere in between. They've got a very similar statistical record to Notts. They score plenty of goals. They concede plenty of goals. So cue a 0-0. you'll get the clean sheet we wanted. But it'll be a tough game, of course it will. And given the circumstances, but you talk about a galvanising factor. Who knows that Harry Arter coming in, the illnesses, the injuries, the fact that they're outside the playoffs. You're right. We need something. Chloe's right as well. We need something to change because we carry on 1.2 points per game between now and the end of the season. We ain't in the playoffs. But I expect it to change. I expect it to improve. And whether there's a galvanising moment or a galvanising game that we all look back on and go, that was it. Well, who knows it? But it might be this moment now if we can get 2 or 3 bodies back, something like normal fitness in terms of illness and stuff like that for Saturday and for Tuesday, then I've got no question at all. Then there'll be an upturn in performances. But it's very difficult while there's illnesses. But it's a tough game Saturday. It sounds obvious, but I would expect there's going to be goals because you've got 2 good attacks and 2 less than excellent defences.
You've kind of, in a way, we excuse Stockport given the quality of that team, irrespective of whether we had full strength or not. Clearly, we hope the illness subsides a little bit. We've got Harry Arter in, possibly another one before Saturday. Are you, without wishing to put words into your mouth and to come back and haunt you, are you kind of saying, Stell, there's no excuses for not getting a result on Saturday?
I'm not saying there's no excuse because you can lose any game, and that goes hand in hand with the 6-7 games at the end of the season on paper are easier, but it doesn't mean they're guaranteed wins in the bag because if they are, we wouldn't be worrying about these games as much if we could guarantee that, like you said earlier. So a defeat is not what we want, not going to be good enough, but you can lose any football match for any number of reasons. So I'm confident. I go there confident, but I would like to have a bit of confidence. I would like to be tipped the wink that we've got a few more players that aren't at death's door by Saturday than we had last night. But it's a tough game. It's a tough game. They score plenty of goals, and if you catch them, I think that the fact of the matter is with Dagenham, if you catch them on a good day for them, they can beat anybody. And I imagine looking at their results, they've had some corking scores this season, corking games. 4-0 against Southend is one you've just mentioned, most recent. So they're going to be banging form, bang high in confidence, and they are going to look at themselves as coming in with a late push to get the playoffs. So it's going to be a tough game, really tough game. So any tough game you can lose. You can lose any game, as Notts have proved many times over the years. But also, you've got to have confidence. You've got to go into it believing they can win the game.
I don't know if you'll be selling plenty of tickets in the next few days, Chloe. What sort of away following are we going to be expecting at Dagenham? Is it going to be hit as a result of recent away day woes, or we're still going to have a good 400 or 500 down there?
I, to be honest, haven't been there for a while since last home game, and I've actually stayed up in Manchester for a while, so I wouldn't have a clue on numbers right now. I would imagine somewhere near the 300-400 mark, possibly. It's a difficult one because, so again, it's a long way to go. Another London away day. I mean, how many times do we have to say it this season? Which is expensive. And obviously, in current form, I don't think anybody's going to be running down there and be willing to pass over their money right now. But we've got a lot of loyal followers that I'm sure will be there. Again, we were quiet on Tuesday, but they were still there in their numbers. Do you know what I mean? Quiet or not, but there was plenty of bums on seats Tuesday night up in Stockport. So I can still, you'll see a few hundred down there, I'm sure, which again is a great away following, given all the circumstances of performances and recent away results and all the rest of it. And especially if a lot of people don't think we're going to be playing half a squad again. But yeah, I'm sure you'll see a few hundred down there, definitely.
Yeah, and Dale Pike, I noticed, did mention that I think the trains are up the spout if you go into London St Pancras. I'll be heading down from Grantham. That line is fine if you're going on public transport. And Stell, I don't know, Chloe, myself and Chloe's granddad pre-COVID, there is a brilliant, and it is brilliant. It's one of the best ones in the East End of London. The old pie mash shops.
All right.
10-minute walk from the tube station past the ground. You come to a big roundabout, you turn right. I can't remember what it's called, but if you Google it, it's one of the top 3 or 4 pie mash shops in the whole East End of London. 2 scoops of mashed potato, minced beef pie, and liquor. Pie mash liquor being parsley sauce.
Yeah.
You queue to get in, you sit on your little Formica table, it all gets done. And it's something like about £2.50. It's just, and it's the place to go stuff. I know you can't afford it on, not afford it. I know on your diet you can't have it, but it might be worth just, creating a bit of space. It is the business, I can assure you.
Do they do diet ones, diet pies?
They do Diet Coke. I think that's about
right. Yeah. Well, if Charlie's back, then we'll struggle to get anywhere other than a Nando's. So it depends if Jake's doing the game. Then we might have a look.
I'll send you it. I'll find the address. Pie mash liquor, top drawer. It's
you might have been right saying I couldn't afford it, because we'll be driving down, so it costs about 300 quid in petrol at the minute.
Yeah, I hesitate to say, but it might be the highlight of the afternoon. I'm hoping not. But look, I'm glad tonight's gone all right, because clearly there was scope for it to go into a bit of meltdown. But we did a bit of research. We've got Harry Arter in. We've given a bit of background, I think, to what happened with applications for postponements. So thank you all for dialing in tonight and watching. Look, we all know somewhere along the way there needs to be a turning point. As you said, Stout, no one is quite sure what that is. Needs to happen soon. I bang on about it. A 95th minute winner, 0 for 1 of them, just to sort of ease people's stress levels. Let's everybody, get together. Let's everybody get behind the head coach, the backroom staff, all of the players. Our best chance of getting promoted this season is with Ian in charge. May well be that automatic has gone. Who knows in the playoffs? We are Notts County. Let's kind of stick together, and what will be will be. But right now, there is absolutely no reason, there is no reason why we cannot be promoted. And if you had a 12-game season to get promoted and into the playoffs, you'd take that rather than a 44-game, wouldn't you? And absolutely. We're right on the edge of it. Let's get stuck in, stick with it. And see where we can get to. Chloe, thank you very much from coming in from Manchester. Stel, as always, thank you so much for all your time. You're here, there, and everywhere. You're a regular guest, so thank you very much indeed. I'll keep an eye. I might buy a pie mash and liquor. All right, small portion on Saturday.
Beautiful. I prefer a tank of petrol.
Couldn't afford one of them.
No, exactly. Who can?
Well, absolutely. Chloe, you won't be there, will you? But you will be there in spirit. Obviously, you've got a family birthday, is it, or something?
Yes, it's my cousin's 18th, so I couldn't get out of that one this time. But I'll be giving it a listen and watch on Twitter and hoping for that 95th minute winner, like you say.
Yeah, I've got to say, stuff. It's quite bizarre because we're doing 99% of the games. That must be only about the 2nd or 3rd game that I've ever listened to you commentating. It's very weird. It's very weird.
Well, lucky you.
Yeah. No, it is very weird and frustrating when you're so used to being and watching every kick, then to have to kind of listen to it all. But no, it was you painted a very good picture. Sadly, it wasn't kind of the canvas we wanted it to be worked on. Never mind. I'll look out for you on Saturday, Stel. Thank you very much indeed. Chloe, thank you. To all of our Magpie Circle flock, thank you very much indeed. Thanks for being patient. Thanks for having a proper, reasoned, rational debate this evening. And we look forward to catching up. It will be next Monday. Take care for now.